Jack Carson was a man who had always walked his own path. In the dusty town of Red Rock, he was known as the cowboy, who could handle any problem that came his way. From wild cattle to tricky horses, Jack had faced it all. The townspeople admired him, yet there was a quiet understanding among them. Jack preferred to work alone. He didn't like help. He didn't need it, or at least, that was what he believed. Every morning, Jack rose before the sun, the chill of the early hours crawling through his small cabin. He dressed quickly in worn jeans, a checked shirt, and his favorite wide-brimmed hat. Boots on, spurs jingling. He stepped outside and breathed in the crisp air of the plains. The sky was painted with colors only the desert could give, shades of pink and orange blending into the deep blue. This was his world, and he knew it like the back of his hand. The town of Red Rock was small but busy. A few stores lined the main street, and children ran freely under the watchful eyes of their parents. Life here was simple, and survival depended on hard work. Jack loved the quiet rhythm of the town. But he also loved the freedom beyond it, where the plains stretched endlessly, and the wind seemed to speak only to him. One morning, as Jack walked toward the ranch, he noticed the herd of cattle grazing near the edge of the property. They were restless, and he could tell by the way a few calves strayed from the group. Jack squinted at the horizon and saw dust rising from the distance. His stomach tightened. A storm of dust? Or something else? He couldn't tell yet, but he had a feeling it wasn't ordinary. Tom Evans, a young cowboy who often looked up to Jack, was waiting by the fence. Tom was eager, curious, and always ready to help. "Morning, Jack. Looks like the herd's getting a little rowdy today," he said, nodding toward the cattle. Jack's eyes never left the horizon. "I see it, Tom. I'll take care of it," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You don't need to worry. I've got this." Tom hesitated. "I can help, Jack. We can—" "No," Jack interrupted, shaking his head. "Let me handle this myself. You'll only get in the way." Tom lowered his gaze, disappointed but not surprised. He had tried before, only to be told he wasn't needed. Still, he didn't turn away. He wanted to learn from Jack, even if Jack refused to admit it. By mid-morning, the situation became clearer. A rogue herd of cattle, likely spooked by something far off in the plains, was moving fast toward Red Rock. Jack mounted his horse and rode ahead to intercept them. The ground shook with the pounding hooves of the animals, and the sound carried for miles. Jack knew he had to act quickly, or the town's fence and crops could be ruined, and someone could even get hurt. He guided the herd carefully, using every trick he knew. He whistled, shouted, and waved his arms, steering the animals away from the town. Sweat ran down his face, but he didn't stop. Jack was proud of his skill, and this was the moment he had always prepared for. Yet, despite his expertise, the situation was dangerous. One wrong move, and he could be trampled or thrown from his horse. Tom followed at a distance, watching closely. He saw Jack struggle with a stubborn steer that kept breaking from the group. Jack kicked his horse forward, lunging at the animal with strength and determination. Finally, the steer moved, joining the rest of the herd. Jack had done it, at least for now. But victory came at a cost. Jack's horse stumbled over a hidden rock, throwing him against the saddle. He fell hard, bruising his side and cutting his hand on a thorny bush. The horse shook, but was unharmed. Jack gritted his teeth and got back on, his pride more wounded than his body. He managed to redirect the herd and finally guide them to a safer area, away from the town. Tom rode up to him once it was over, worry written all over his young face. "Jack, are you okay?" Jack looked at his scraped hand and tired horse. "I'm fine," he muttered. "Just a scratch. Nothing to worry about." Tom shook his head. "You're always saying you can do everything alone. But look at you now. You could have gotten seriously hurt." Jack looked away, embarrassed. He didn't like to admit it. But Tom was right. This time, his stubbornness had almost cost him more than pride. That evening, Jack sat on the porch of his cabin, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted with gold and purple, and the wind whispered across the plains. Tom joined him quietly, sitting on the step beside him. "You know, Jack," Tom said softly, "I want to be like you. But I can't learn if you don't let me help. From now on, we handle everything together." Jack stayed silent, staring at the fading light. He wanted to refuse, as he always did, but he couldn't shake the truth in Tom's words. He had spent so long thinking he was stronger alone, but today had proven otherwise. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice low but thoughtful. Maybe there's something in that," he admitted, "but it's hard to trust someone else with what I've always done myself." Tom smiled. "I'll make it easy." Jack nodded slowly. For the first time, he felt the weight of being alone lift just a little. He realized that strength wasn't just about skill or courage, it was about knowing when to rely on someone else, too. As the night settled over Red Rock, the two cowboys sat quietly, listening to the sounds of the town and the wind across the plains. Jack's thoughts wandered to tomorrow's work, the challenges that would come, and the adventures that lay ahead. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about doing it all alone. He was thinking about doing it together. And that thought, simple as it was, felt like a new kind of freedom. A freedom that came from sharing the burden, the risk, and the triumph with someone you trusted. After the events of that day, Jack Carson and Tom Evans became inseparable on the ranch. Jack, who had always trusted no one but himself, found himself learning something new every morning. Teamwork. Tom, though younger and less experienced, proved to be a reliable companion, quick to act and eager to help. Together, they made a stronger team than either could have imagined. One morning, the two cowboys prepared for a long cattle drive. The ranch had received an order to deliver a large herd to a distant town, several days' ride away. Jack had handled many drives alone in the past, but this time, he accepted Tom's company without hesitation. The young cowboy's enthusiasm was contagious, and Jack realized that sharing the workload made even the toughest task feel lighter. They saddled their horses and led the herd out of the ranch early in the morning. The plains stretched endlessly before them, golden and alive under the rising sun. Jack rode beside Tom, who was already practicing steering the younger cattle with skill and care. Jack watched silently, occasionally offering tips. "Keep the herd together, Tom. Don't let the calves wander too far," he instructed. The first day passed without incident, the herd moving steadily along the trail. By evening, the two cowboys made camp near a shallow creek. Jack built a fire, the flames crackling and throwing warm light against the darkness. Tom helped unhitch the horses and feed them. The young cowboy's hands were rough and calloused, but careful, reflecting his growing experience. As they sat by the fire, Jack spoke quietly. "You know, Tom, I wasn't sure I could let anyone ride with me before. I always thought I had to do everything myself. But today was different." Tom smiled, tossing a stick into the fire. "I know, Jack. And it's not about taking over. It's about helping each other, keeping the herd safe, and learning along the way." Jack nodded, a rare smile appearing on his weathered face. "You've got a good head on your shoulders. Just don't let it get too big." The next few days brought both challenges and growth. One afternoon, dark clouds rolled across the sky, signaling a sudden storm. The wind howled across the plains, and the first drops of rain fell quickly, soaking the cowboys and the cattle. The ground became slippery, and the herd grew restless, snorting and stomping. Alone, Jack might have struggled to control the herd, but together, they managed the situation. Tom guided the younger cattle, keeping them from straying, while Jack focused on directing the larger, stronger animals. They shouted, whistled, and rode with precision, the sound of pounding hooves blending with the rain. Hours later, drenched and exhausted, they finally found a safe spot and secured the herd. That storm would have been impossible alone, Jack admitted later, as they huddled under a lean-to, sipping water. You kept your head. I couldn't have done it without you. Tom grinned. I knew you'd see it that way eventually. Teamwork makes the tough days easier. The days stretched on, and their bond strengthened with every obstacle. At one point, they had to cross a wide river. The current was strong, and the riverbed was slippery with stones. Jack led, testing the safest path, while Tom followed closely behind. Halfway across, one of the horses stumbled, throwing its rider slightly off balance. Jack acted quickly, reaching out to steady the animal, while Tom guided the others. By the time they reached the other side, both cowboys were soaked and tired, but a sense of accomplishment filled them. They had faced the river together, and neither would forget the lesson that even strength and skill were not enough without trust and support. At night, under a sky full of stars, Jack and Tom talked about life on the plains, the towns they would see, and the adventures that awaited. Jack shared stories of his past drives, of narrow escapes, and funny moments with cattle. Tom listened intently, asking questions and offering his own observations. They laughed, shared fears, and learned from each other. Jack realized that this partnership wasn't just about safety or efficiency. It was about friendship. On the final day of the drive, the town where they were to deliver the cattle appeared on the horizon. Exhaustion weighed heavily on both men, but they felt pride in what they had accomplished. The townspeople gathered, impressed by the size of the herd and the condition of the animals. Jack and Tom worked together to guide the cattle into pens, coordinating the effort with careful precision. Once the herd was safely delivered, Jack leaned against the fence, brushing sweat from his brow. Tom stood beside him, smiling. We did it, Jack. Together. Jack looked at him and nodded, a genuine warmth in his eyes. I never thought I'd say this, he said slowly, but I'm glad we handled it together. I couldn't have done it alone. Not this time. Tom clapped him on the shoulder. And you don't have to. That's the point. Ad Bryn. Win the lask. Ad Bryn. They rode back toward Red Rock the next morning, the sun rising behind them and casting long shadows across the plains. The journey back was easier, filled with conversation and laughter, rather than constant vigilance. Jack noticed things he had never paid attention to before, the way the grass swayed in the wind, the birds gliding effortlessly above, the soft rhythm of horses' hooves on the trail. Life seemed richer when shared. By the time they reached their ranch, the two cowboys were greeted by their neighbors, who had watched their success from a distance. Jack introduced Tom with a proud smile, acknowledging his contributions. Couldn't have done it without him, he said simply, and the town nodded in respect. That evening, Jack sat on his porch once more, watching the sun dip below the plains. Tom joined him, just as he had on that first evening after the stampeding herd. The wind was calm now, carrying only the soft scents of the prairie. Jack reflected on everything that had happened, the danger, the hard work, and the lessons learned. He realized that true strength wasn't just skill or courage. It was trust, friendship, and knowing that some burdens were meant to be shared. And as he looked at Tom, laughing quietly at a story from the day, Jack felt a quiet gratitude he had never experienced before. The two cowboys had faced storms, rivers, and restless herds. They had braved the challenges of the plains together and emerged stronger for it. Jack knew that, from now on, he would never go it alone again. Life was better shared, and adventure was sweeter when faced side by side with someone you trusted. The sun set completely, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The plains stretched endlessly, as if inviting them toward new journeys, new challenges, and new stories. And Jack Carson, once a lone cowboy, felt a deep, satisfying peace. He had learned the most important lesson of all. Some things, no matter how skilled or brave you are meant to be handled together.